Southern California is facing another disaster, just weeks after battling raging wildfires. The most powerful storm of the season has unleashed relentless rain, triggering destructive mudslides and debris flows that have left entire communities struggling to recover. Some areas were drenched with more than 7 inches of rainfall, turning streets into rivers of mud and debris.
Yep, he just made a mistake.
The driver of this pickup truck tried to drive through a flooded street.
In Malibu, dashcam footage captured a terrifying scene as a wall of water and debris burst through concrete barriers on the Pacific Coast Highway, sweeping an SUV off the road in an instant. Hector C., who barely escaped, recalled how another slide trapped them from both sides just moments after they tried to back away. Emergency crews rushed in. The chaos was fueled by an atmospheric river dumping massive amounts of rain over charred wildfire zones, flooding Los Angeles, and even triggering a rare tornado near Oxnard. Residents described the moment disaster struck, with homes shaking violently and the deafening sound of rushing mud crashing down the streets.
Oh my God, the truck is sinking. The truck is sinking.
At least 5 people have been killed in the state, and officials are worried that number will rise.
This is our main concern after the rain stopped, but again, this is still rather tumultuous.
While storm barriers kept the worst of the runoff away from homes, the destruction was unavoidable. Vehicles were buried in thick mud, a firefighter was swept into the Pacific Ocean by raging floodwaters, and the roof of a supermarket collapsed under the weight of relentless rain.
With all of this, a firefighter swept by a torrent of water into the Pacific Ocean.
Hills Creek, the water here is risen. But his car was quickly overtaken.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult to see it. Had 2 fires in about a month's time.
So the bottom line from the governor, stay in your home, stay off the roadways. They want to keep the roadways, at least those that are still open to emergency vehicles.
So how is the community?
And swam in to try to rescue him, but moments later, he too was trapped in the high water.
For locals, this back-to-back devastation has been overwhelming. In just a few weeks, they have endured massive wildfires, and now entire roads have been wiped out by mudslides. The closure of Topanga Canyon has severed a major route, crippling businesses that were already struggling. Even those untouched by flames are feeling the economic shockwave ripple through the region. For some, this was the final blow. With the Pacific Coast Highway closed due to mudslides and fire damage, and utility crews taking over the area, some business owners have made a heartbreaking decision to walk away for good.
Just a godsend right there. To be able to
it sounded like something hit the top of the house.
All of a sudden you could hear the roar.
The house shook.
600 National Guardsmen have been activated, 8,000 are on standby.
UV back onto dry land. Captain Air.
Cars partially buried in mud. That's what happened 2 decades ago, 60 miles north of Malibu. A major mudslide.
The storm is moving slowly over Georgia and South Carolina this morning. 3 inches of rain expected in some parts with the threat of
This is the city of Asheville.
catastrophic flooding. Our team is following the latest.
Mountains of North Carolina. 2
2,000 feet above sea level and hundreds.
Overnight, Debbie slowly swirling across the southeast.
In many cases, changed the landscape as the water's power reshaped the riverbed.
He will land in Los Angeles tonight, and he and the team will begin relief efforts early tomorrow morning for the next few weeks.
Dropping life-threatening rain in Georgia and South Carolina,
where it swept this SUV off the road in seconds. The debris barely missing Hector Caldera's own truck.
In Edisto Beach, South Carolina,
And a team of Red Cross volunteers from South Carolina left for Los Angeles today. They will be on the ground for the
tornado on the outer bands of Debbie, tearing homes apart. In Debbie's wake, flash flood emergencies in Florida.
Tomorrow morning, the South Carolina team will begin relief efforts, providing food. Next 2 weeks, delivering.
In a now all too familiar tale, Helene picked up massive amounts of energy.
Safe shelter, health services. Ryan has been volunteering with the Red Cross since he retired in 2019.
Exacerbated, scientists say, by climate change. From the unusually warm Gulf water speeds up to 140 miles an hour at their
touched off tornadoes across the south and left tens of thousands without power.
to miles away from the nearest coastline. But such was the force of Hurricane Helene. That nowhere in its path was safe.
We are surging with the canyon code.
And is deployed on emergency missions like this over a dozen times.
As many as 600 people are still on the missing list as search teams fan out across the state.
All we had time to do was just kind of look at each other and say, run.
The flooding is so widespread.
Result was a 350-mile-wide devastating storm with winds
where they took on that eye wall. They had
It happened
strong winds tearing up trees.
so fast there was
Dashcam capturing a rain-fueled touring.
in the town of Hazard, security cameras
but somehow safe.
Little time to escape. A mother and her 7-year-old captured the moment Main Street was submerged. Snowplows had to clear the mud left behind.
The close call.
Grandview Drive to PCH, and the now constant
Child were killed when the car they were in
blamed on an atmospheric river.
More than 16 inches of
Drenching charred burn zones.
rain fell near Sarasota.
He's sensitive to those who lost everything, but says the secondary impact from
5 people have been killed, including 2 children.
and the rain is enormous.
All the businesses in Topanga are affected, even though the fire.
A 13-year-old boy died when a tree fell on this in Horseshoe Beach.
It began after
A flash flood from Hurricane Helene engulfed a neighborhood in Sugar Hill, North Carolina.
My car is gone.
it touches every corner of Kentucky. Soaking rains drenched the state over the weekend. Rivers started rising and didn't stop.
This is the second hurricane to hit parts of America in just over 2 months. And many predict scenes of devastation, not just on the coast, but deep into the country, could become the norm as rising temperatures from human-induced climate change take their ever more destructive toll.
The same storm system caused flooding in West Virginia
And it was all the way up the street up here. It just looked like the bottom of the river.
The landslide risk remains.
Navigating the worst flooding to hit the region in a century, with thousands.
Southern California is reeling from a catastrophic storm.
Of downed trees, power and mobile outages, hundreds of closed roads.
It's undescribable. I don't know.
in Lake City. This woman was lucky to make out alive.
Sweeping an SUV off the road in mere seconds.
And this is the surface of Lake Lure, an hour below the mountains of Ashford, now an apocalyptic stew of rubble and debris after Helene ripped through the state, unleashing torrential damage. Homes were swept away in the storm that had been a Category 1 just the day before,
leaving towns swamped.
Was swept away by the floods.
Downpours and catastrophic mudslides, killing
Hundreds of water rescues
alone so far, and more than 115 in total
are still playing out across the state,
47 in North Carolina,
with many roads flooded and impassable.
The hurricane collided with presidential politics too, with Donald Trump arriving in Georgia this afternoon.
Time for the water to go down.
As they respond to non-stop.
This is an unprecedented storm.
Some rivers crested as high as 30 feet. Damage.
First responders are being
2,000 bridges and roads
being pushed to their limits, working for days with little sleep.
The National Hurricane Center says it still presents a, quote, major flood threat for parts of the Carolinas. The storm caused at least 2 tornadoes in South Carolina and in Dorchester County, which is just west of Charleston.
Calls for help.
We're still focused.
Extensively to survey the damage and use the hurricane.
severing a vital transport link to the eastern seaboard.
Have you ever seen anything like this?
And have you reached out to President Biden about federal relief efforts?
No, I haven't reached out to him. No, I think he's sleeping right now, actually.
And emergency responders there had to rescue people
Friday into Saturday along those rivers.
Wow, okay. And so as we look ahead, Thomas,
We're planning at the moment, so we're lucky in that regard. And here in Dorchester County, we didn't, we had some tornado warnings, but we didn't sustain any damage.
okay, that's good to hear.
I've directed my team to provide every available resource as fast as possible to your communities to rescue, recover, and to begin rebuilding.
What other services are available to perhaps businesses that have been closed for a while, and so we wait to see. The declaration helps us with all the pre-storm work right now, and then a lot of it's based on the actual true damage after the fact. Our roadways, our bridges, they all need to be inspected if they were flooded to see what the damage and actual impact was.